Hi, this is Mother Oracle again, and today we're going to talk about some hard subjects for me. So I hope you can all handle it better than I can, and I know I'm supposed to say this, so if you like this channel, if you find anything helpful at all, please subscribe, like, comment, share, all those things that all good YouTube watchers should be doing, and I do as a good YouTube watcher, although I'll say I'm not as good at sharing as I am watching, liking, commenting. I do all those things, so please try to be better than me. Okay, so now today's subject, I am not looking forward to this, and you'll notice if you've been watching any of my other ones, I'm going to try to look to where the camera is so that I'm looking at you behind the camera, although I have to say it's a little hard because I see myself on the picture, and it's easier to talk to a person than it is to talk to a spot on the phone. So we'll see how it goes. I'll try the best I can. I have some notes, and I mentioned in an earlier video that composition books, and I know I probably just flashed my name. It's Diane Hearn. It's okay. You guys can know who I am. I'm very proud of who I am. Composition books. I write notes. I write stories. I have been doing this, writing in composition books, since I was a teenager. Started by writing poems, let me see how I want to say it. Probably, I don't know if I was 13, and I'm going to adjust that a little bit so we don't have a car in view all the time. I was a teenager, and I started writing some poems. Actually, I did one, I believe, for maybe it was my aunt and uncle's anniversary. I know one of the first ones I wrote was for that, and had it put on a little ceramic for them, a little ceramic plaque or tile, I guess you would say. And I guess going back to when that was in the 70s. Yeah, I'm 63. So, yeah, age. Getting older sucks. There is no way I can put that in any other way. I know there's people who gracefully grow old and have never gained weight, look as beautiful and as pristine as they did when they were younger. God bless them. It's not me. You know, I was beautiful. I'm still beautiful in my mind. It's really hard to get older. It's really hard. When you're young, all you want to do is get old. And when you're old, all you want to do is be young again. And, you know, to be happy the age you're at is a really wonderful thing. And as you can see by my gray white hair here, that you may be able to see, I don't know if you can even see it anymore, there were some little bits of a teal color that my daughter actually put on my hair. While I was putting peacock color hair on her head. Anyway, I'm okay with my white and gray hair. I'm okay with it, and I'm not going to color it. I actually really like it a lot, and I don't care if it makes me look older. It's the age I'm at, and it's what the universe has given me, and I am going to live with it. And along the lines of, you know, getting older, I can say honestly that I don't feel any older. Like, yeah, my body feels it. Yeah, that's one thing. But no, this is the thing. Most of you, when you're young, you think, oh, that old person, right? Like, ooh, I don't want to be old. Look at that old person, That's not going to be me. Well, yeah, it is. And you don't know what you're going to be like as an older person until you're an older person. You just don't know. It's not going to happen. Trying to figure out, I have a couple windows down here in my car, and I'm trying to figure out if I need to roll them up, if there's going to be a little too much noise outside, or not. So I guess I'm just going to go for it and just leave them down right now. Of course, as I'm looking over, I see little sprinkles on the window and on the car next to me. And so if it starts pouring, I may have to turn the car on while the video's taking place, because I'm not stopping this. So back to age first. Yeah, as you get older, you still, like, in your mind, you're the age you want to be. Like, your mind doesn't, well, some people's minds might age, but that's a health issue. I don't see it as much as an aging issue as I see it as a just general health issue. And I know scientifically that may not be true, but it's sort of true, because there's people that get older and don't have those issues. So obviously certain people are predisposed, whether it's genetically, the way they live their life, whatever it is, that causes the decline of the mind as you get older. And who knows, with MS, who knows what's going to happen to me. It might happen to me. I'm hoping it doesn't, because I still want to do and experience life as I did when I was younger. I still want to get out there and ride my bike. I still want to get out there, and I haven't ridden it, but I want to. This is the issue I'm trying to make. I want to do all those things. I still want to have sex with my husband. Guess what? Surprise, that doesn't go away. If you're one of those people out there that's really young and you think that that's going to go away, no, it's not. Life goes on. People still want to do things. They still have dreams. They still want to travel. They still want to own a house if they don't own a house. They still want to do all those things. They want to go swimming. They want to, they want to walk around an amusement park instead of having to be pushed in a wheelchair. Really? Do you think people enjoy riding around on those little things? Well, maybe those are fun, though. I have to say, like, those little riding things can be fun. But, that's expensive. You should rent those every time you go to an amusement park. Forget it. If you've got somebody strong that can push you, you let them push you, because it's a little easier and a lot cheaper. So let me get back to my losing track of what I'm talking about. And that's not age. That's just me. That is just the wonderfulness of me. I have always been like this as long as I can remember. Talkative, lose track of what I'm saying because my mind is active and it's going in 20 different directions at the same time. There's a woman walking past, so generally, like, I'm like Doug in Up. It's like, squirrel, oh, I'll lose my train of thought sometimes because something else catches my attention, or something else sparks a memory in there, and I'm off in a different direction. So I apologize if those things happen. They don't have to do with age. They just have to do with personality. They have to do with the way that you're wired. Well, that's the way I'm wired. So I hope it does not bother anybody watching this channel. I hope that you will stay and continue to watch me talk about all these different things. So here we go. Age. I just gotta say that, you know, I can't honestly say that getting older is bad. I have a lot of experiences. I've had a lot of experiences. I have been alive long enough to have seen the first man walk on the moon, to almost go to Woodstock. My mother would not let a 10-year-old go to Woodstock, and not that she knew what was going to happen. She just had heard there was a lot of traffic and didn't want to drive and get stuck in traffic. So, you know, I almost made it. I've just seen so much happen, and you know, my growing up, I'd have to say I lived in the best time. I really did. I grew up upstate New York. I grew up in a really comfortable time, a really comfortable family. I had one sister, 2 brothers, my mom and my dad. They were always there. My dad, and again, I might go off and talk about some other things. I thought I was going to talk about age, but maybe it's just about growing up and the time period I grew up in, and for this recording, so we'll see. Basically, I'll tell you a little bit about my parents. When I was little, my dad had a farm, excuse me. He had a farm and had some really bad luck. The farm burnt down. The barn burned, excuse me. The barn burnt down. And then he rebuilt it, and the barn burned down a second time. And then he bought some cows, and the cows had anthrax, and he lost the whole herd. So he ended up having to file bankruptcy, and we moved from a farm, which I have to say I loved. It was, you know, an old house out in the country, and we'd go out. I'd go out in the field with him to call the cows in so they could get milked. In fact, when I was born, my dad, I guess, was on the farm milking the cows. But my dad, he was a hard worker, very hard worker. And most of my life, I remember him working 2 jobs. He was a mechanic, because when he grew up, it was taking care of your own cars was commonplace. And he had 5 brothers when he was young, and he had a sister that had gotten adopted. That's a whole nother story. I'll go into it another time. It's like I don't know where to go from there. But my dad could do just about anything. That's what I thought of him. He was amazing. He could build anything. He could create things. He was a hunter, so he was a good shot with a gun. I've always told people that he was a combination of MacGyver and Daniel Boone. That was my dad. Very gentle spirit, very loving in his own way. I don't remember getting a hug or a kiss really from my dad until I was leaving home to move to Florida, and that was the first time. I mean, yeah, when I was really little, I remember, like if I got hurt, he would hug me and love me, and I remember that, but it's not something that happened like regularly versus my mom. But my dad, just great guy. When he was young, he ended up getting what's called muscle bound. He had big muscles in his arms, and I guess when that happens, it has something to do with cutting off the circulation or something like that. The muscles pinch the nerves or do something. I don't know if it's nerves. I don't know what it is, but it's what he always told me. He also had really big hands, and he had polio when he was a little child, and he always said that it stunted his growth, that he was supposed to be much taller, even though all of his brothers that I met, which I think there was at least one or two that passed, one in World War I, I believe, and maybe one in World War II, or sometime in that period. I'm not sure. I've got in my mind, I'm guessing one of them died in the war at least. It's just sad. My dad served in the Army. He was a sergeant. He actually got, during the Korean War, he was sent to Germany to guard the wall, the Berlin Wall. And so he spent his time in the military in Germany, no doubt flirting with the blonde German girls. And he also had an Indian motorcycle that he would ride around. And I've heard stories of him telling me that he drove his motorcycle straight up a wall, and down again, which, most people would say, no, that's impossible, but not my dad. Like, I believe it. When he taught me how to drive, he actually took me out on the icy roads going up the hill. We lived at the very top of a hill, a steep hill, and he took me out to learn to drive on ice, and I'm behind the wheel, and he reaches over on the icy hilly road, and he shakes the wheel back and forth, and of course started my car spinning, and he's like, now get out of the spin, straighten your car up, so that was his way. It was his way. He was very to the point. I don't think he ever pulled any punches. He was a Taurus. I don't know, I'm not going to go into that, but he was a wonderful man. And I guess just to tell you a little bit more about him first before I go into my mom, he actually told me when I got older, I was probably a teenager at this point, maybe one of the last people. I mean, I was the youngest of 4 children, so he told me every time he went out to go deer hunting, which he did every fall, he told me that he might not come back. And that's what he would say. Like, accidents can happen, which is true when you're out and there's guns, there's other people in the woods with guns, and I understood that. And as this happened year after year, I always just took it as my dad. It's just what he does. He just tells you that every time. And I moved to Florida And then in the future, my parents did get divorced, and in the future, he moved to Florida. And he, every time, again, he would go up to go deer hunting in the fall, and he'd come see me for the last time before he left. He would tell me he may not come back again, you know, that it might be the last time I see him. And he would say that to me. And I'd be like, no, Dad, you're going to come back, you know, and it was just a thing, you know, he'd always say it to me. And the actual last time I saw my dad, which was at my goddaughter Lily's blessing, like christening event. He was getting ready to go, and we walked him out to his car and said goodbye, you know, usual goodbye. I wasn't going to see him. He was going up deer hunting. It wasn't such a usual goodbye. As soon as my dad drove away, I looked at my husband and said, he didn't tell me that he might not be coming back. And I just remember that feeling of, you know, just, why didn't he tell me? And the only other thing I can tell you is that my dad always dyed his hair. Okay, now when he was younger, he probably had mostly blonde hair. Probably then it got sandy brown. I'm not sure. But I will say that my dad dyed his hair shoe polish black. Like my whole life. I don't know if it was Grecian formula, whatever it was. My dad's hair. There were times when, God love him, he looked like Elvis. He had the big, you know, what are these called? Sideburns. He had the big sideburns. And his hair was just black, black, black. And he had it like that for his whole life. But about maybe a year before he passed, he actually stopped dyeing his hair. And by the time he left to go up deer hunting that time, the last time I saw him, his hair was white. His hair was all white. And remember him, it was like an orange color at one point. And during him growing it out, and I remember him asking me, when is this going to stop? When is this going to finally be done? Like, when is it going to be all white, you know? And anyway, my dad, believe it or not, went up deer hunting, and he was up there with my brother, and my dad was up there early, went and saw a whole bunch of people, visited family, visited friends. He had a whole list of people he was going to go see. And the morning he passed, he got up, he made a big breakfast, was joking around, having a good time. He had already gone up into the woods. He had already gone up on the hill, and he had already put his, what do they call it? A blind. He had already put his blind up where he wanted it. He was prepared. And my dad got in the truck, my brother's truck. My brother's driving, and my dad was sitting next to him. And my brother thought that, they'd gotten up early, and my brother thought, well, he's just taking a little nap, dozing a little bit before we go out hunting for the day. And so he thought nothing of it. He pulled over the car, parked the car across the road from the mountain where they're going to walk across and go up the mountain. And my brother's name, Peter, my oldest brother, he reached over, shook my dad to get him to wake up, and he didn't wake up. And so my brother realized something was not right, and my dad had heart problems, so he always carried nitroglycerin tablets that you'd put under the tongue and they would dissolve. So my brother grabbed those, put one under my dad's tongue, and he said he just kind of like straightened himself, like woke up for a second, straightened himself, reached over for the door handle of the door, the handle of the door, pulled it open, opened the door, and put one foot down on the ground. And my brother, while this is happening, is running around the truck to the opposite side. And he said by the time he got to the other side, my dad was dead. Our dad was dead. And he had to, he laid him on the ground, tried to give him CPR. Of course, where they were, there was no real connection. Phone, was spotty, and he couldn't get a connection. And he, I feel sorry for my brother, because he is giving CPR. He's trying to revive our dad, and he basically then had to put him back into the truck and drive him to the funeral home. He took him there, and it's really sad. But in my mind, I see my dad, and what he had said he always wanted was, to go up hunting. Like, he told me basically in other conversations that was where he wanted to die. He wanted to die up on the mountain. And so he did. He basically got what he put out there in the world, that he would just, I think he just walked off. He just, put that foot on the ground, and maybe his body was there, but his spirit just walked off to go deer hunting. So I just, I love that, and yet it was so sad. So age, yeah, I'll come back to that, because I'm not going to let this video go that long. And I'll probably stop it, restart another one, and talk about my mom a little bit, and then talk about other things. But just real quick, and I know I touched on it, but didn't really go into it too much. My dad, I said he worked hard, but when he did move to Florida, and no matter what, when he was here, every birthday, my dad showed up with a birthday cake for the kids, for me. I can honestly tell you that while my dad was alive living in Florida, I never, ever bought a birthday cake, except for when the kids were 1 year old, and I didn't buy it. I made them all a birthday cake. So he just, he was just amazing. He was loving. I think he was a little psychic, because my dad actually, I would be driving home from work, and I worked at Disney for years and years and years, and we'll talk about that in another video. But I would be driving home, and I would be thinking something like, I really could use like eggs, and I need oil for my car, and toilet paper, and I would have like a list of 3 or 4 items, totally unrelated items, things that didn't necessarily come from the same store even. And I would get home, I'd be like rushing home, and me, because I'm me, it didn't matter how old I was, I'd say those things in my head, and I'd think, okay, I'm gonna get home, I'm gonna get changed, and then I'll go out and get them, right? I'd get home, and I'd maybe be tired or whatever, and I'd get home, and then guess what? There would be a knock on the door, like within an hour or so of getting home, and it would be my dad with those items. He'd show up with the exact items that I needed, and that's all I could say is my dad, a little psychic. And I did talk about his family, and I didn't really go into detail about his sister, but just I'll do very quickly. When my dad was a young boy, and there were 6 boys. I think he was the next to the oldest of the 6, and or third, I'm not sure, but he his mom died in childbirth, died right after having his sister, and his father, unfortunately, left with 7 children, could not cope, and was drinking, was a drunk, and put the children in an orphanage. It's heartbreaking. It is really heartbreaking when I think about it. Anyway, and then his, I should say, his aunt and uncle, his uncle owned a farm, and this was his aunt was his mother's sister, and I believe also that his mother's mother also lived with them. At least I think that's what it was. So the uncle went to the orphanage and adopted the 6 boys, but left the girl in the orphanage. And so the 6 boys, they were useful. They could work on the farm. And it's just sad. But many years later, like after, it might have even been after I was born, my aunt, his sister, was traveling through the area of New York where we live, and this is the story I'm going to tell. It's according to her. She's the one who told me this story, that she went into a gas station and there was a person in the gas station who looked at her and said, "You must be a Hearn," or excuse me, wow, where did that come from? Okay, "You must be a Near because you look just like the rest of them." So, you just look like all of them. My dad and brothers, very distinct facial features, and I look like my dad. We did one of those things where you change yourself into a man, or if you're a woman and you change yourself into a woman if you're a man. Well, mine, when I saw it, it was like, oh my God, I'm looking at my dad. And I had no idea. I never realized that I looked so much like my dad until that moment. I don't know if he ever realized it. Maybe he did, but anyway. So this person at this gas station saw my aunt, recognized the familiar family look, which, you know, granted I have brown hair, but most of the girls in the family all had blonde hair, blue eyes. My dad had beautiful crystal blue eyes. And I got brown eyes, so, but anyway, my sister had blonde hair, like white blonde hair, and blue eyes, and, you know, gorgeous. But back to the story, recognized her, and supposedly that's how she got in touch with the family. Now, my mother tells a story that one of the uncles, one of my brothers, my father's brothers, actually was looking for her and found her. So maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe he looked for her and found her and got her to come visit, and then someone saw her at a gas station and said something. So it could be a little bit of both. That's what I'm going to go with. And now basically just, you know, back to that. I did get to meet my aunt. I loved her. as I was older, she would come to different things for the family. My dad would just go pick her up. She lived in Orlando, Florida, of all things. And so, you know, it was wonderful. I got to meet her and met her daughter, and she was, you know, she was great. Lots of fun. And when the two of them got together, it was kind of funny because it was like a typical brother and sister, even being younger. Like, even though they didn't have that growing up time period, she would just joke around with him. You know, she was a kidder, and she would do, you know, she'd make him laugh. And so it was really good. It was fun. But anyway, my dad, let me see. I'm trying to think how old he was when he passed. Wow. He passed in, I think it was 92. And, you know, he was born 21. So, I don't know. You guys can figure that out. I'm not going to sit here and do math right now. I think he was like 79, 70. I'm not sure. But, you know, he knew, I mean, he had prostate cancer at one point, large prostate, I guess, and I know that he was in the hospital, and I was the one that actually took care of him. I would take him to the hospital when he was having heart issues. I would I'd be the one visiting him in the hospital, and then he would come to my house and stay when he got out of the hospital, and on several occasions. And, you know, he had balloon angio things done to his heart. He had an enlarged heart. His lungs weren't good, so toward the end, they couldn't put him to sleep. He really needed probably a heart-lung transplant, but they couldn't do it or wouldn't do it. He wasn't, you know, maybe he wasn't high enough on the totem pole, whatever, or because he needed both. It was just tricky. Maybe because of the prostate, he didn't qualify. But at one point, he came out of the hospital, and he had a catheter in, and I told him, "You stay in my bedroom on the bed, and I'll sleep on the couch tonight. But I'm gonna go to my full moon pipe ceremony," which is what I used to go to, at the Spiral Circle with Beverly, who worked there, and who owned it, excuse me. And I'd go with my husband, or, you know, fiance at the time. Actually, when that happened, I don't even think I knew my husband now. But I did have 3 young boys at home, and so they were there with my dad to watch him, and for him to watch them, a little bit of both. But I went to that full moon pipe ceremony, and I prayed. I prayed so hard for my dad to get better. And that night, by the next morning, I guess my dad's catheter came out at some point. Maybe early in the morning, I don't know. And that was years before he passed. And he just really fell asleep. He didn't have any pain. And I am so happy, because he told me, when I told him about me praying for him, he said, "Well, I guess what you did worked." And he never had another problem with his prostate. So faith, healing, belief, it works. No matter what your age is, no matter what. Love and believe 100% that what you're doing is working. And I'm going to end this video and probably almost immediately start another one. And I'll talk about my mom a little bit in that one. All is well.